You can see my screen now. So hi, I'm Sam from UCAS. UCAS is as Sean's already said, we are the centralised admissions service for application to higher education within the UK. What that means is that it provides a fair and transparent application process. We will process your application and send it on to the relevant universities and colleges of your choice. We are here to provide impartial information about applying to higher education in the UK, and we process over 500,000 applications every year. It's really, I think it's worth noting that we are a charity. We're not affiliated with the government at all. We are an independent charity. We are here to support with an information, advice and guidance. We do not make, if everyone could just mute, that would be really great, and then we won't have any background noises. Thank you. We won't make decisions, and we're not responsible for any decision making, and we are also not responsible or do not advise on where you should apply. So we provide impartial advice. We also, UCAS are also not responsible for any finance, funding or visa information either. So again, we can't advise you on any aspects related to this, but we can signpost you to further support and advice. And I know that that's going to be covered later in this session anyway. So just briefly to run you through applying, what are the key facts of applying? So the application is entirely online. You can have a maximum of 5 choices that you can apply to. A choice is a course at a university or college. There are some restrictions. So if you were looking to apply to medicine, veterinary science, medicine or dentistry, or to Oxford or Cambridge, you can actually only apply to 4 of the MedVet courses and either Oxford or Cambridge. If you were looking to apply to any of those, the application deadline has now passed. It's actually the 15th of October for those early, what we call the early courses, because they're extremely competitive. However, the rest, all other courses are still open, and I'll run through some of the other deadlines in just a second. There is an application cost. If you're looking to apply to 1 course, it's £22, or 2 to 5 choices is £26.50. We have what's called equal consideration. What that means is if you meet the deadlines, then your application will be considered by university or college based on the information that's provided. You are able to apply after the main deadline in January. And we would always encourage that if you're going to do that, absolutely do make sure you're applying at the right time for you individually, but just double check with the university or college that you're interested in applying to. Give them a ring, contact them via social media, and just ask, are you still taking applications for this course? The admissions team's numbers are always available either on the university website or on the UCAS course search. And we have what's called invisibility. So when you make an application through UCAS, we will process it, send it off to your 5 choices, but they will not know where else you have applied. So they'll only know that you're applying to their course. They won't know where else you've applied until later in the year, when you're receiving offers back and you make a decision as to which offer you would like to take. And at that point, they will know where else you applied. So what are the dates? So the application has actually been open since May of this year for a September 2022 start, so next September start date. From September this year, we were actually taking applications to be submitted. So normally between May and September, people would just be researching, thinking about where they might be going to. We don't actually allow anyone to submit an application till September. As I've mentioned, the 15th of October deadline has now passed, and that was the deadline for Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, dentistry and veterinary science courses. So those applications will now be closed. It's doubtful any universities or college will take any late applications for those courses at this stage. However, as I've said, a whole host of other courses are available. There's over 35,000 courses that you can apply to through UCAS, so really a large choice. And the majority of them will be taking applications, well, the majority of them, the main equal consideration date is the 26th of January 2022. So you still have several months to do your research, think about applying and get those applications in. But as I said, that is not the cutoff. You can actually apply right up until the 30th of June next year to start university or college in the September of next year, okay? Between January and June, all I encourage you to do is to give the university or college a quick ring for the courses you want to apply for and just double check they're still taking applications. Some competitive courses or courses where numbers might be limited due to space or teaching, then they may not take applications if they arrive after the 26th of January. Okay, so just be aware of that. And it is 6 o'clock UK time, and we are very strict on that. It is 6 o'clock that applications have to be in. You can still apply after the 30th of June as well, and that would be into something called clearing. But I would really encourage you, if you are thinking about university, that you actually get those applications in at the very latest by the 30th of June 2022. It enables you to get lots of other things arranged and sorted, such as accommodation, potentially finance and funding, which will be covered later. And leaving it until the summer, just before the start date, makes those decisions and options a little bit more restricted. Okay, so what you'll need to do is register with the UCAS Hub, and you can do that online at ucas.com, and you will see the screen in front of you, and you'll see a tile that says start. That is where you will start your application. It'll take you through to the application form. I'll briefly show you that in just a second. And that's where you will then actually monitor and follow the progress of your application. You'll be able to see how far through it you are at each stage, and you'll be able to see when you've actually sent it to UCAS as well. The UCAS Hub also has a load of other research tools available, and I'd really encourage you to have a look at it. We've got our new careers quiz, which is just launched in the last month. So if you're unsure about the sort of career that you might be looking to go into, but you know you want to go to university or college, this can be a good starting point. So you just answer 30 questions, and our careers quiz is the only one that's actually then linked to courses. So if you go through the quiz, it will show you skills that you might have, and it will give you a summary of different industries across 13 sectors and with a percentage match. So you can, this was my quiz. So I had 100% match for education and training, but I also had good matches in a load of other sections as well. And I'd really encourage you to look through all of them. Once you've done that, sorry, I've just skipped on too quickly. You can go into each of these and see even more options, and it will then take you through to some job roles. And if you click onto that, it will then take you through to some course suggestions. So even if you think you know what you want to, where you want to work, or maybe you have a career in mind or a career that you've done previously, it's still a good tool because it might just open you up to some courses that you've not thought of in areas that you're skilled at or areas that you have an interest in. So it's just a good starting point if you're just beginning to think about applying. Some other things to consider and how the UCAS Hub can help. Obviously, the location of the university within the UK. We have over 360 different universities and colleges that you can apply to through the scheme. So it's important to understand where they are located, if they're in Northern Ireland, Scotland, England or Wales, and also then how that might link for you in terms of where you might be living, transport links, and that will have implications for cost in terms of travel, if you do need to travel back and forth, for example. It will also help you to understand what being at that university or college might be like, whether it's based in a larger city or a smaller town, or even more remotely in the countryside, like some of them are. It's also worth considering how many current international students are studying at the university or college. As I said, we've got over 360 available to apply to. Some of them are very small, only a couple of thousand students, and others, as you can imagine, are based in big cities with over 20,000 students. And so that will give it a different feel for you when you're learning and the experience that you'll get. When you are on the UCAS Hub, you have this favourites tile, and from that, as you begin to explore, find courses that you're interested in or regions that you're interested in, if you click the heart symbol at any point, it will log it onto your favourites so that you can come back to it at a later date. You've also got the option, there's a pages tab on that favorites tile as well. And if you're on ucas.com and you're looking at any information pages, you can use the heart as well to favorite that to your to this tile, so you don't lose it. So you find it easily when you're coming back to consider different bits of information. For example, we've got lots of information and advice on writing a personal statement. You might want to favorite those pages to your tile so that when you're coming to write it, you've got that information to hand. Our Explore tile as well has lots of information and advice and subject guides, which will help you to understand what the different areas are that you might be looking to apply to. So in the UK, degrees tend to be very specialised, and they allow you to focus on your chosen subject right from day one. There are some courses though that might offer a bit more flexibility. So when you start searching, it's really important that you make sure you read exactly the course descriptions and what you will be studying. And not all courses in UK higher education are the same. So they might have the same name, but they might not be studying the same information. So a few other tips to think about when you're beginning to think about applying to higher education in the UK. Please make use of virtual open days and virtual events, and you can search for events near you, again on the UCAS hub. It's really important to read the online prospectuses, the reviews, and also engage with different universities and colleges on their social media channels. It's important to look at entry requirements, okay, for the courses that you are looking to apply for. This can be challenging potentially if you have gaps in your education, or maybe your qualification, you weren't able to actually complete it. And potentially the qualifications that you've done in other countries you might not easily see them on the entry requirements. So I would really encourage you to make contact with the universities and colleges that you're considering from a very early stage. They really want to understand their students. If you're unsure as to whether you would be a suitable candidate for the course, contact them, ask them, explain the qualifications that you have, explain your educational history, make them aware of it, and ask them whether it would be suitable for you to apply for that course. Nobody wants anybody to apply for a course that they don't stand a realistic chance of being accepted onto. So getting in contact early, either through an open day or through a virtual event, or by contacting them directly, is really important. When you're also looking at the colleges and the university choices, consider how they're taught, consider what modules, so what units you'll be studying over the years of the course. How will it be assessed? Will that suit you? Will it suit how you like to learn? This is really important. With so much diversity across universities in the UK, it's important that you find one that will match you, that will fit you, that will enable you to succeed, because you'll be learning in a way that best suits you. Are you more practical? Do you prefer things like lectures? Do you like to work in small groups? For example, how do you learn best? And also look at who teaches the course. Are the professors of interest to you? Do they do research in subject areas that you are interested in? It's also worth checking with the university or college and looking in the entry requirements about English language requirements. So most universities and colleges do require you to demonstrate proficiency in English, and they may require you to take an English language test. It's likely that this is the case if you can't evidence that you have a qualification in English already. So that's an important thing to consider in your application process, because you may need to take this test before being able to progress onto the course next year. And again, if in doubt, contact the admissions offices to find out which tests are acceptable for them. So not all universities and colleges will use the same system. So you do need to make sure that you know what each of your choices are looking for. Okay, once you've been offered a place on a course, the university will then guide you more into what happens after that point. Okay, and they may then provide you with support, for example, on immigration guidelines, on visas if you need one, or on your fee status as well. I would really encourage you, although it's going to be discussed a little bit later by the STAR team, to again speak to universities and colleges early, speak to them now about any finance and funding support that might be available, and also to make sure that you understand what your fee status will be, and I'll come on to that in just a second. There's also the option through the UCAS hub to talk to other students already at university. That's a really great way to decide if it's the right place for you. We've teamed up with UniBuddy, and that gives you the chance to speak to current students. You can speak to people who are a similar age to you and also who speak your language as well. So please do have a look at that through the hub. Okay, I'm going to briefly talk about personal statements before I then come on to some tips for application, and then we'll be finishing. If you've got any questions for me, then do pop them in the chat and I'll try to get to them just at the end of my section. So the personal statement is a large part of the application. It is the practicalities of the personal statement can be worrying for people. So you will have to write an essay essentially about yourself and why you want to study the courses that you're applying to. The maximum is 4,000 characters. It's about a page of A4. There's no formatting, so no bold or underline or italics, and there's no inbuilt spelling or grammar checks, and it does need to be written in English. So it's really important that you get somebody to proofread it for you and to double check that it flows and that it's clear. What's being looked for? Well, universities and colleges are looking for you to show that you are suitable for the course that you are applying to. They use it to help them work out which applicants would be most suited to the place at the university or college. They want to understand that you've got the ability to study independently, that you have a self-awareness of what the course involves and self-awareness of your ability to study. Motivation and commitment, not only to do the course and the subject, but to see the course through for the 3, 4, 5 years, however long the course is that you are applying to. They want to know that you actually understand what you're applying to. And I know that sounds silly, but we often read personal statements, you know, people applying for economics courses who don't really understand what economics is. They think it's business and it's not, they're different. So it's about making sure that you really understand what the course is about. And that's where the research is so important. Strong applications are all based on a strong research foundation. Have you researched the courses? Do you really understand what it's about and what is involved? All of the research you do will actually help you to write your personal statement because you'll understand what they're looking for in a candidate. You should also have an understanding of the profession if it's got a direct link. So for example, anything where there's a clear vocation connected to the course, things, for example, like nursing or teaching, would be important that you can communicate, you understand the profession as well. They want an essay, they don't want you to write lists. And we would say go beyond the syllabus. So what we mean is go beyond what you think they want to hear, really go into detail about that subject and course that you're applying for. They want to understand that you've got the ability to manage your time and to be reflective. When you're writing your personal statement, there's just a few things to remember. I like to call it the ABC rule. So when you're talking about an ability that you have or an achievement that you've got, you talk about the A, then talk about the B. What have you learned from doing that thing? What skill, what knowledge, whether it's subject specific or transferable. And then the C, this is the bit people forget. Link it back to the course. So A, B, C. Every time you write something in your personal statement, make sure that it's clear. What are you talking about? What have you learned from doing it? And how does that make you a more suitable candidate for the course? Evidence is what makes a good personal statement. So think about a personal statement as something that's jam-packed full of evidence. Evidence that you're proving your interest in this subject area, okay? It might feel like sometimes gaining experience in subjects or extracurricular activities, if you are a refugee or in the asylum system, that actually you're at a disadvantage. Maybe you haven't had the same opportunities, or potentially your education has been disrupted and you don't feel you've got, you know, enough evidence. But we have worked with STAR and other organisations to create a personal statement guidance document written by students. You've already gone through the process, and I will you'll get a copy of these slides after, and I've included the link in the presentation. So what, you know, in the guide, what we want to make clear is that adjusting to life in the UK, navigating potentially the asylum process can be really challenging without having to think about what other evidence you've got for your personal statement. It's important, and you can build a really impressive personal statement by showing how you've managed those complexities, how you've managed the complexities of starting life in the UK. And you'll have definitely developed a huge range of important skills and characteristics through the process that you are going through or have been through. So it's a great starting point for your personal statement. So start by identifying key strengths that you've got and exploring your experiences. You don't have to go into lots of detail about your personal circumstances if you don't feel comfortable, but if you do, then it's absolutely a really insightful way to share with admissions teams why you'd be a suitable candidate and where your enthusiasm for the subject has come from. So if you don't feel like you've got a lot of evidence, there's some things you can do. So just think about studying in general. Think about ways that you've taught yourself new skills. How have you gone about that process? What do you think makes a successful student, and what skills do you have in that area? You might then want to think about some specific skills or personal characteristics. So again, use the course descriptions for ideas on this. It will talk about skills that you'll need to do that course. So write those down and then use that as a start for your personal statement. And then think about non-academic situations. It's not all about what happens in education. So what other skills have you got? Your day-to-day activities, your day-to-day life. What skills do you demonstrate in there every day that will make you suitable for higher education? And more importantly, prove that you are going to achieve when you're in higher education. It's a lot about showing that you've got independence and the ability to be reflective and the ability to learn by yourself and to take instruction where needed. So all of these things you can refer to. There's other ways that you can also get additional evidence if you feel you don't have enough. So attending virtual exhibitions, as I've talked about, and asking them, what can I do? And what sort of things are you looking for in the personal statement? Universities and colleges want to share this. They want people to succeed and they want the best candidates for their courses. You can also do online work experience or do online free courses. Lots of universities and colleges now run free subject taster sessions as well. So make use of those. TED Talks, podcasts, this is all really relevant evidence. So if you're interested in the course, you can have a look for podcast TED Talks documentaries that are in a similar area or focus on a similar topic. And then you can refer to those in your personal statement about how you've got, and this will show that you've got genuine interest. It's about showing the links between the evidence as well. So it might be about, I read this newspaper article on this particular topic. This then led me to listening to a TED Talk by the person that had written the article. This then showed me, and it led me on to reading this journal or this book online. Okay, so it's about showing the links between the evidence as well. And again, using our UniBuddy platform, asking other people that have already gone on to do your course, what did you include in your personal statement? It is important to point out at this stage that we do have a similarity detection service. So all applications are run through plagiarism software, and that will include the personal statement as well. So it's a fraud and verification system where, to make sure that every application is genuine. And that includes plagiarism for the personal statement. So please do not be tempted. Do not fall foul of online companies promising to write your personal statement for you for a fee. We will obviously have any online examples are in our bank. We also have every previous cycle of personal statements that it's run against. And if you're paying someone to write a personal statement for you, they may well be, writing them for other people as well. And then we will obviously, that might get flagged during the system, or it will get flagged during our plagiarism checks. If your personal statement is found to be plagiarized, we do inform all the choices that you're applying to, and then they will make the decision from there as to whether they'll still accept your application or not. So it's really important the personal statement is your own work. I know it's a daunting thing to do, but we've got lots of support available on UCAS.com. We have a personal statement builder in the hub, and that's got some questions to get you started. You can save it, you can export it as a PDF as well. At the top there, we've got this specific guidance written for people who are a refugee or seeking asylum, and I will make that link goes directly to that. It's got some great guidance and advice to get you started. As I've mentioned, we've got a personal statement builder. We've also got some do's and don'ts on UCAS.com, some FAQs, and some advice on how to start and how to end your personal statement. Within the UCAS Hub, there is also a tool called the Hub Live. These are live workshops that we run throughout the year. And on there, you can also access all of the ones that we've done previously. And there have been several that have focused on the personal statement. So in the Hub, go and have a look at the Hub Live tile. You'll see it when you log on to the Hub, and you can access all the previous recordings. And there's a great one about writing personal statements in there too. Just a quick bit of information about references. So you will need to include a reference in your application. This should be somebody that knows you academically and that could talk about your work ethic, your ability to interact with others, and really your suitability for higher education or a future career. If you're in current or recent education, somebody like a tutor, a teacher, a principal, or a supervisor would be absolutely the correct sort of person to ask to do your reference. If not, you could ask an employer or a volunteering supervisor or somebody that you're working with who might be supporting you with training. But it should be somebody that can comment on your suitability for higher education. It cannot be a friend or a personal family member or a partner. So it cannot be anybody that knows you personally. It must be somebody within the context that I've outlined. And we've got some advice on UCAS.com as well about how to get a reference. Okay, and there is an option to not include a reference if you really can't get one, but we would absolutely not advise this. A reference is a really important part of the process, but we do know that sometimes it can be impossible to actually find somebody to be a reference for you. If you're going to do that, you must seek permission from the choices you are applying to before you submit the application. If you submit without a reference and they're not aware that that will be happening, then it's likely your application won't be considered. This is what the application form looks like. There are sort of 9 main sections. So your personal information, residency details, employment, education history, nationality, English language skills, supporting information, which I'll explain in a minute, an indication of finance and funding, but this can absolutely change. And then obviously your personal statement and reference, and then you have your 5 choices as well. You cannot submit until the application is 100% complete. So when you are actually applying, just a couple of things to consider. There is a question about residential category, and you do have the option to, there is there the option to state that you are a refugee or that you have humanitarian protection. If you are currently seeking asylum and your status has not been finalised, it's probably best that you maybe put other or speak to the individual university or college first, all the colleges that you are applying to, because what you put in this section will inform the fee status. So whether you pay home fees or international fees. Okay, I know it's going to be covered a little bit more later. If at any point in the application form you need more advice, then you can press the blue question mark. If you do that from this residential category section, or if you need more information and advice, there's a link to UCAS, which again can give you a good overview about, you know, what your residential category should be. We also have the option for you to put nominated access. So this might be somebody that could speak to UCAS or the university or college on your behalf. But they would be able to see your application, and they would be able to also see decisions and offers coming in. So it must be somebody that's extremely trusted, and they do need to be named by name on the application form to be able to actually discuss your application with us or with a university or college. There is also a supporting information section, and this is where you can include whether you have any additional needs, disabilities, or indeed whether you have a mental health illness. Please don't worry. We know applicants feel very nervous about sharing that they have a disability or that they have a mental health issue or that they have any additional needs. However, I would strongly encourage you to share that on the application form. It will not be used in the decision-making process at all. It is simply used for universities and colleges to make sure you have access to the correct support arrangements, whether that be some support with your disability, whether that is through student health and well-being services or other support services. The earlier they know, the better they can support you with your transition to higher education and put you in touch with support services that you might need to access. So just to categorically reassure you, this is not used at all in the decision-making process. It is simply about making sure you get the correct support available. There is also the option to show if you have ever been care experienced in the UK. So if you've ever been in the care system within the UK, you have the option to share that in the application form as well. Again, this can help universities and colleges in assessing what support requirements you might need, and also in assessing whether there might be any additional financial support for you. Okay, so that's only if you've been in the care system within the UK, however. Finally, education. You may have gaps in your education. You may not be able to fill this out completely. That's absolutely fine. Fill out what you were able to in your education. If you can't find your qualification, there's the option to put other and to type in the name of the qualification. Also, you can then discuss any gaps in your education in your personal statement if you feel comfortable, or you can ask your referee to do it in the reference. So the personal statement and the reference are sections of the form where the context to your application can be added. Okay, so you can provide additional information to your personal situation, and that might include your educational history. And all of that, the more insight you can give, the easier it is for universities and colleges to then make a decision on your application. We also ask that people indicate how they might be financing university. That can change. So if you don't know, there is the option to put don't know at this stage. Okay, if your status changes, and that might have an impact on your residential category or your finance and funding, then you can update your details before you submit the application. And if you've already submitted, contact the university or college immediately if that changes after you've submitted your application, so that your eligibility can be assessed correctly. Okay, so that's some key points to consider when you are making the application. Okay, any support at all, if you get stuck on filling out the application form or you're not sure what to put, you can phone our customer experience centre at any point on the number below, and that's open 8:30 till 6, Monday till Friday. Obviously, towards deadlines, we get very busy. So it's best to give yourself plenty of time when you're doing your application. Don't leave it till the last minute. You can also contact us on social media, and you can actually direct message us from Facebook and Twitter. We also run a number of Facebook Live sessions throughout the year where we take your questions and answer questions on the application process. So hopefully that was useful, and you've had some time to take those questions. Apologies, I have run over slightly, Becca and Siobhan. Are there any questions that we want to take now, or I'm happy to hang on till the end if that's easier?
That's fine. Thank you so much, firstly, for that really comprehensive presentation. We do have a couple of questions, some of which I'll address during my presentation about scholarships and finance, but I wonder if I could just put a couple of specific UCAS to you. Well, firstly, we got a lot of questions about previous qualifications from other countries. I think you mentioned already in your presentation it's best to check with the individual university, and if it's not clear on their website, get in touch with the university to see if they accept your previous qualification. I would also add there is, I'll pop it in the chat now, a service offered by ENIC. They provide a statement of comparability for international qualifications. There is a fee attached to that, unfortunately. It's around £50 but you can get in touch with the university to ask perhaps if they could support with that process. Is there any other advice, Sam, that you'd give about that question of previous?
No, I would just say don't make any assumptions on your qualifications. Always speak to the university or college, whether that is you proving your English proficiency, whether that is about a previous university or master's level qualification you've got. It's always best to speak to the university or college first and then go from there. And as you said, ENIC is available to do a comparison, and the university or college may ask you to do that. But particularly around English language requirements, there is no one size fit all. You can't say, oh, you've done a GCSE in English, that the university will accept that. Every university or college will be slightly different, so you must check with them.
Fantastic. Yeah, so that answers another question about English language requirements. Can students apply for academic prep or English for academic purposes programs through UCAS? That was another question.
No, so we only take applications for full-time undergraduate courses. So anything that might be a part-time course or a different, like a preparation course, you would usually apply directly to the provider. So UCAS is just for really those full-time undergraduate. It's not just about degree level. You can apply to HNC, HND, some foundation programs through UCAS, but it is about full-time courses. So part-time or preparation courses would be direct with a training provider. And be careful with those preparation courses. They're really useful, but check before you sign up that they'll be accepted by the university or college you are applying to. It's no guarantee. So before you do anything or invest any time or money in preparation courses by private training providers, you must check with who you want to apply to for higher education that they're willing to accept it. It's not a given. Every university is autonomous in their decision-making process in the UK.
Yeah, great. And a number of universities might offer specific preparation courses for refugee and asylum seeking applicants. Yes. Okay, and then just a couple of questions as well about if somebody reapplies next year, do they need to rewrite their personal statement?
That's a great question. No, if it's your personal statement and you're using it again next year or in a couple of years' time, you don't have to worry about the plagiarism. You might want to tweak it slightly year on year, but if it's your work, your personal statement, yep, you can absolutely reuse that.
Great. Okay, and then just a final one that's just come through. You can only apply to 5 universities through UCAS. Can you apply for more by yourself? Am I right in saying no for undergraduate? It's just 5 max.
It's just 5 maximum, yes. You can't apply for any additionally outside of the UCAS system.
Okay, great. The other questions I think will either be covered by my presentation or we'll get to them at the end. So thank you so much, Sam.
Brilliant. Thanks, everybody, and really good luck with all of your applications.
Great. Okay, moving swiftly on. We are going to do a bit of a whistle-stop tour now through some other points. If there are other questions that come up, we're happy to stay past 6, but we'll aim to finish the presentation by 6. So Sam gave a lot of advice there about UCAS applications and undergraduate applications. Actually, a lot of what she said, particularly about researching and choosing a university and a course, also applies for postgraduate applications. And I know that some of you will be thinking about this, thinking about a master's or perhaps a PhD. So I just wanted to flag some differences. The deadlines that Sam spoke about don't apply for courses at postgraduate level. You should check with individual universities for the deadline that they have. You might also want to check the scholarship deadlines, because even if the course has a later deadline, there might be a scholarship that you're reliant on, which has an earlier deadline. So you'll need to apply in enough time to apply for that scholarship. At postgraduate level, you'll need to have previous study to a relevant level. So for a master's, you'll need to have a bachelor's degree or equivalent in a relevant subject. And usually for a PhD, you'll need a master's level or equivalent. Again, check with the individual university for requirements. At postgrad level, you don't apply through UCAS, you apply directly to the university. And in certain circumstances, you might want to build a bit of a relationship with the university beforehand, particularly if you're applying for a PhD. you want to make sure that there's an academic that might be able to supervise you, and you might even approach them beforehand to see if they are interested before you submit a research proposal. And there is some student finance in the UK. Becca, if you could pop that link in the chat about student loans, postgraduate loans. Restrictions, though, apply. So you might find that you aren't eligible, or that it isn't enough to support your living costs. Which brings us to the question of student finance and scholarships. So as Sam already said, it's really important to consider early on if you are eligible for student finance. Student finance refers to loans that an individual can receive to cover their tuition fees and their living costs while they're studying. But your eligibility for this varies depending on your immigration status, where in the UK you are resident, so if you're in England, Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland, how long you've been resident in the UK, what previous study you have, even if it's from another country, and what course you're applying for. As a general rule, if you are currently seeking asylum, you aren't eligible for student finance, whereas if you have refugee status or humanitarian protection, you should be eligible for student finance. If you have limited leave to remain, it will depend on how long you've been resident here. If you're in England, you will need to have been resident, if you're under 18, for 7 years, if you're over 18, for at least 20 years or half of your life. But there are lots of other requirements attached, as I mentioned, things like previous study. If you've previously studied at an equivalent level, you may be ineligible even if your immigration status entitles you. So have a look at the UCAS and the gov.uk websites that Becca has put a link to in the chat, and have a look at those right now, I would say, to make sure you know if you are eligible or not. If you are eligible and you're happy to apply as early as you can for student finance, because it can be quite complicated to get all of the documents that you need. So give yourself enough time to do that. If you find that you aren't eligible for student finance, or that you need additional financial support, you may be eligible for a university scholarship. So these are scholarships that are offered by individual universities to support students from refugee and asylum seeking backgrounds to apply to their institution. And the good news is that around half of universities in the UK do now offer some kind of support. You can see on the link that Becca put in the chat, the STAR scholarships list. This is a collection of the 73 universities that offer some kind of scholarship or bursary. We don't administer these scholarships, but we try to collect the information and advertise it. You can check the details with individual universities, but you'll see just from looking at that list that they are quite varied in terms of who is eligible and what they include. So make sure you have a look through and find one that is relevant to you, both in terms of your immigration status, the subject or level of study you're applying for, and the support that you need to help you study. We also have on our website a guidance document, and you can watch a video of a workshop all about applying to scholarships. But in terms of applying, that happens a little bit later. Scholarships applications tend to come after you've applied for your university course. And we will be running additional sessions in February and March, specifically focused on scholarships. So come back and join us for those once you're putting together your application. But it's important to understand now what you're eligible for, because you want to choose a course at a university that has scholarships that you're eligible for. Okay, so that's the starting point. Even if you're not going to apply for your scholarship until a later date, make sure you choose a university that will enable you to take up your place and complete your studies, because they offer the right support that you need. Then you'll apply through UCAS for undergraduate degrees, or directly to the university for postgraduate degrees. Usually you need to be accepted onto your course before then applying for the scholarship. Okay, so this is the general rule. You apply to the university, you get an offer, and then you apply for the scholarship. It is worth noting, though, it can be different for each programme. So as I said, check the details with the university, make sure you understand what you need for the universities you're applying to. And even if you're not applying for the scholarship now, check the details now so that you make sure you have everything that you need. Other resources and support to help you with your application. We'll be sharing these slides with all participants afterwards, but I think Becca's put in the chat the link to the relevant page on our website that has a full list of other resources and support. And there are organisations that offer further information about accessing university. And as you've already heard from UCAS, they have a lot of great resources there for you. We will also be offering some follow-up mentoring sessions with STAR. And so I'll hand over to Becca now, just to give a brief overview of these sessions.
Oh, sorry. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so on the 15th of November and the 1st of December, we will be running some mentoring sessions where we will pair you up with a current university student who has recently gone through the application process and has been trained by us and UCAS to give you some support with applying to university. So it will be really great one-on-one opportunity to just talk to somebody who's been through the process about what it's like to apply and any questions that you have about university. So we'll be sending a link at the end of this session for you to sign up if you would like to attend. We'll try and match people as much as possible with people who are studying a similar course or have similar interests. But yeah, if you have any questions about that specifically, please do also pop them in the chat. And I think Siobhan's just put the sign up form there as well. And any more questions you have about that, please do either send an email. I think you've got our email addresses, or you can ask them now in the chat. Oh, Siobhan, I think you're still muted.
I'm still muted, classic Zoom mistake. Yeah, thank you, Becca. So I just put the link to sign up in the chat. Places are limited, but we'll let you know by next Wednesday, the 10th of November, if you have a spot. Okay, we have now, 5 minutes for questions. So if we start with any that came up in the chat, and then also if you do have follow-up questions afterwards, you can take a look at our Equal Access Inquiries form that has a lot of useful links and information in it.
Great. Yeah, a couple of questions that have come through, Siobhan, that maybe you can help us with. The first question is about scholarship. So when should I start applying, and do I need to apply for my university place before a scholarship?
Yeah, good question. As I mentioned, generally, universities require you to have a place at the university before you apply for the scholarship. So you need to apply to that university first. In terms of deadlines, though, that varies between universities. Some are already open for next year, so you can already submit an application. The majority, I would say, open from January or February time. But it's never too early to start looking. So you'll see on the STAR scholarships list, a lot of them at the moment say that they're closed, but that doesn't mean that you can't go and look at the university's website and see what they usually offer. 99 times out of 100, they will offer the same scholarship year on year. So if they've offered one previously, usually they'll offer it again. But as I say, each individual university administers their own scholarship. So if you're unsure about anything at all, get in touch with them. And they do usually have contact details on their website. That can also be a good way of kind of building a relationship with the university and making sure that they understand your situation.
Thanks, Siobhan. Had a few questions relating specifically to specific courses, about transferring a bachelor's degree over, about teacher training, and about what kind of courses to apply for. And I think we won't kind of give you advice about any specific course, but yeah, Siobhan, I mean, I'll let you kind of speak to that.
Yeah, as you say, we can't really give specific advice on individual courses. Can't emphasize enough kind of checking the details with individual universities and reaching out to them with specific questions. But if you do have kind of previous study that you are wondering if it's relevant, a good start, as we mentioned already, is the ENIC statement of comparability, or talking to the admissions team about the qualification that you have. The other thing to be aware of, though, I mentioned about student finance. If you have previous study at an equivalent level, you may not be eligible for student finance, even if you have refugee status or humanitarian protection. So bear that in mind as well.
Thanks, Siobhan. Just had a question through. I'm just going to read this one to you. I've been here for 8 years now, and I would like to know if I would be considered as home fees. I tried to apply to a university in July, and they considered me as an international student despite not having a decision on my asylum claim. Is there a standard policy about home fees?
That is a very good question, and one that I should have raised already. As a general rule, if you are seeking asylum, you are treated as an international student. So if you are waiting for a decision on an asylum application, the default is that you are an international student and therefore need to pay higher international fees. However, each individual university has the ability to change that rule and to charge you home fees rather than international fees. So it is worth checking with the individual university. I would say, though, the bigger issue is that home fees are still very expensive. So even if a university classes you as a home fees student while you're seeking asylum, that's very difficult to meet the costs of £9,000 a year usually. So check with the scholarships and see what support they offer to help you fund that, as well as finding out what your fee status would be.
And another question that's just come through: can asylum seekers apply for student finance, and can asylum seekers get undergraduate degrees as well?
As I say, sadly not for student finance. For the government student support, asylum seekers are usually not eligible for a student loan, but you can apply for scholarships that universities offer. And in terms of can asylum seekers study an undergraduate degree, for the most part, the answer is yes. You have the right to study in the UK while you are seeking asylum. There are a very small number of people who may not have that right. If on your Bail 201 form, it says that you do not have the right to study, then that's really important to check. It might be that that has been given to you in error. So if that is the case, if it says you do not have the right to study, check with your solicitor if they think that that has been given correctly. That's usually only if you are appeals rights exhausted and at the very end of the process. For the most part, as I say, while you're seeking asylum, you have the right to study, and we campaign for that right to be honoured by universities in the UK.
I'm conscious about time, so if people do need to go, please do feel free, but we will stick around for the next at least 5 to 10 minutes to kind of answer any of those other questions. So please do stay if your question hasn't been answered yet, or if you've got one. But if you do need to go, thank you so much for coming, and we really hope that this was useful. Sorry, Siobhan, I don't mean to sort of talk over you.
Not at all, no. I just put in, before you leave, if you don't mind filling out our evaluation form that I just put in the chat. That's really helpful for us to plan future sessions and understand what's needed. But yeah, if you're happy to keep going, Becca, there seem to be more questions.
Yeah, we've got some more questions. And yes, please fill out the evaluation forms, and please do also sign up if you're interested for the mentoring sessions. If you don't have the IELTS certificate, can you start the application when the certificate is ready, or attach it with the other requirements?
Yeah, usually for IELTS, universities require you to have that by the time you start your course. So it's usually that you'll get a conditional offer from a university, and they will say, you know, you have a place at the university, but you need to get IELTS at a certain level before you start. So that you don't need to have your IELTS before applying.
Great, thank you. And a really great question here. Is it better to focus on the universities mentioned on the STAR website that offer scholarships, or to contact any universities that you happen to be interested in, whether they mention scholarships or not?
That depends. If you are reliant on a scholarship, so if you don't have access to student finance, or if you are in need of additional financial support, I would recommend prioritizing that, because it can be really kind of upsetting if you go through a long process of applying to a university, find one that you really love, get a place, but then find that you can't study without that financial support. So yeah, if you do need a scholarship, I would prioritize that. There are sometimes cases where universities might have other pots of money that are relevant to you. So particularly at postgraduate level, if there is a scholarship that is for a certain subject or for certain minority groups, you might also be eligible for that. So you know, do look at other universities and look at other scholarships that they offer. They might not be listed on the STAR website, but might be, say, you know, a scholarship for people who are studying race relations in the UK, or people who are from a certain country originally. The universities offer very diverse scholarships, and so it's still worth looking at those kind of options.
A question sort of specifically about kind of postgraduate study, about how can you find a supervisor for your PhD thesis?
Yeah, that's not something I'm an expert in, but I would say it's just a matter of, well, hopefully you kind of know the subject that you're interested in, and you know who the main scholars are in that area. So you want to find a university that can support you in that area. So find a university that has, you know, an expert that you're interested in, and then you can always reach out to them and say, are you taking on PhD students? Are you perhaps interested in my research proposal? Yeah, I
can just speak to that a little bit. It's you'll contact, before you apply for a PhD, you'll need to find your supervisor. So find somebody who, as Siobhan says, has similar interests, research interests, ask for a meeting and see if that maybe matches your interests, and then you can start the application from there with PhD requests. Got a question here, about ESOL courses. Can an asylum seeker apply for a bursary in a college? I study an ESOL course, but I'm not sure if I am eligible or not.
For ESOL courses and for colleges, that falls under further education rather than higher education. I would recommend looking at the RE UK website that Becca already, I think, put a link to. If not, it's in the slides. I can grab it now. They have information all about funding at a college level, and they also have an advice service that you can get in touch with. So yeah, I would take a look at that.
A question here from Shahad, who says, what are the courses we can study online which support our personal statement? I don't know if Shahad is still here, but maybe if you could clarify, do you mean if you could do anything additional that could help you with your personal statement, or a course that will help you write your personal statement?
Yeah. Hi. Yes, because, you know, in the beginning she just mentioned that, you know, there is something we can add to our personal statement so that it will support us.
Okay,
so if you can just, I mean, my question is, if she can just mention for us where we can find these courses online so that we can go through it.
Yeah, I think Sam's gone now, but I think what she meant was any kind of online courses that are relevant to your subject are a great way to show your level of interest and that you've been preparing for your study. We have a page on the STAR website that I'll pop in the chat. I would say if you look particularly at the online courses tab there are some links to subject-specific courses. There's a link to OpenLearn, which is offered by the Open University. They offer free online courses. They aren't always accredited, meaning they don't always count for certain number of credits, but they are great to mention in your personal statement to say, I'm interested in business management and I've done a course which is Introduction to Business Management. This is what I found interesting about it, and this is what I learned. That there are lots of great free online options there.
Siobhan, we'll go for about maybe 4 or 5 more minutes if we still have the questions, and then wrap up. So if you do have any last minute questions, get them in the chat now. Got a question: as an asylum seeker, if I am considered as an international student, would the Scholarship of Sanctuary cover the full fee?
Usually, yes. On the STAR scholarships list, it details what it covers. The minimum usually is that it covers fees. It's just worth bearing in mind that you'd normally need to have that covered, a fee waiver it's usually called, plus some additional support to help you study.
Yeah, and please do look at the scholarships list because it's very comprehensive and should really help you out, hopefully. A question: I've got a BA from my home country and I want to get the same BA in the same course in the UK. Would it make it easier to get onto the course having already had that subject?
Possibly not, to be honest. It's worth talking to the university about it, but generally they would want to know why you need to do the same course again. So it would be a matter of making the case that you really need to kind of re-qualify for the UK context, perhaps, or that there is some reason why you need to study the same course again. But it might mean that they don't accept you for their scholarship, or it might mean that you aren't eligible for student finance, even if you normally should be. So yeah, it's really worth talking to the university about that.
Great, thanks, Siobhan. Would my work experience give me the advantage to go to university?
Usually, yeah. It's an example to go in your personal statement showing that you have relevant skills and experience. So yeah, I would say yes. And
a clarification here, did you say that asylum seekers are not allowed student loans?
Yes, exactly. Yes, asylum seekers are not eligible for student finance, so you'll need a scholarship.
Great, thank you. A question: in the case of an asylum seeker who's recently moved here and interested in postgraduate study, what's your recommended university location?
Oh, that's too hard to answer. That will depend on the subject that you're interested in and on a number of practical considerations. So I would say a big thing to consider if you've recently arrived and if you are currently seeking asylum, you might be in asylum accommodation. And in order to kind of study and stay in that asylum accommodation, you can't move asylum accommodation for higher education. It's not counted as a priority. So you might want to look at universities in your local area that offer support and that offer courses that you're interested in. But yeah, do have a look at the scholarships guidance document that Becca posted earlier from the STAR website. That has questions like that, as well as other things related to, particularly if you're on asylum support, it's worth thinking about how a scholarship can impact asylum support. So do have a look at that and consider those types of questions to help you kind of find a university that suits you.
And we had a question a little while ago about medicine. I believe that medicine applications have closed this year, but in general, are there scholarships that cover the study of medicine?
There are, yes. It can be more limited. So check with the university and see with the scholarship if it does cover medicine or not. Sometimes it doesn't because medicine is a very long course and it's tied to some NHS funding. So yeah, check with the individual university scholarship.
Great. So I think we're probably just going to have to wrap up now. Sorry if we didn't quite get to everyone's questions, but please, if you don't feel like your question was answered, do have a look on the website and through the resources we've sent. And if you still do have questions, then please do email us at STAR, as well as saying that anything you're still unsure about, hopefully we might be able to discuss a bit more at the mentoring session if you are able to attend.